What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel as you tune in and check out the content. And with that being said, man, here we are with the Hawks, man. The Hawks are like on a 7-game losing streak. And this right here, like this losing streak, don't do anything but just give more fuel to to people who say that the Hawks should separate themselves from Trae Young, right? And just really start over and just go into like rebuild mode. Which I mean, if I think it's not a bad idea to go into rebuild mode. Because if you're losing 7 games in a row anyway, you close, you're not too far from rebuild mode. And so to totally reconstruct the team in a different way and allow Trae Young to go somewhere else where he might be able to help a team or have a better, get to off to a fresh start. People talking about he may be able to go play team up with Giannis, people or Anthony Edwards. So it, it there are some options for Trae Young, as to who he can go play with and who he could possibly help out. But I want to react to what was said on the Running Back podcast, right? Michelle Beadle and Lou Williams was discussing the Atlanta Hawks, and I want to listen to this and just react to it. And so, with that being said, here goes the audio.
In Oklahoma City, SGA with his 39 points. Chet had 24. Okongwu had 26 and 14. But there's no Jalen Johnson and no Trae last night. They've lost those 7 straight. The ideas that the team's going to move on have gotten louder and louder. Like the voices are getting louder out there. So I'm wondering in Atlanta, where you are, like what kind of panic situation are we feeling with the Hawks?
Yeah, they got to find an identity at this point. We gotta figure out what is the best next steps moving forward for the Atlanta Hawks. And yeah, the chatter is getting loud. It's getting loud, and the fan base in the city, they just want a clear direction of what's next. What are we going to do with Trae Young? What are we going to do with Jalen Johnson? What are we going to do with the identity of this basketball team? And the reason being is because they've tasted success. You had a Eastern Conference Finals run, and then after that, you kind of tapered off, and you weren't able to get back to that place. But as a fan base, you've shown that we had the pieces. We were good enough to get there, and this is something that's tangible for us. As a fan base, and they want more of the same. And now that you have the results that you have, they're just unhappy. And Trae Young coming in and out of the lineup, and it being kind of a roller coaster of trying to find some middle ground with the team, and just being able to compete at a high level. It's been a lot, and the chatter is getting louder and louder. And me as a fan, like everybody else, I'm curious to see what's the next steps, because I want to see this team get on the right direction. In a perfect world, I would like for Trae Young to be a part of that. But you know how the NBA works. When you get into your eighth season and up, and you don't really get the results that you want, it may be time to look in a different direction. So,
And see that's important right there, right? Like Trae Young has been in the league for a while, and it's not all his fault that they haven't been able to get over the hump. They did make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think when you have a player like Trae Young, who is a volume shooter, a shoot first guard, you gotta surround him with defenders, and you gotta surround him with guys who are like very athletic, and like what they had when and so some of the pieces that they traded away and then they kept Trae Young, it kind of made them taper off. With same thing like when Philly had Allen Iverson. Like you put a bunch of guys around Allen Iverson who was defenders, and you just let Allen Iverson do his thing on the offensive end. Trae Young, in my opinion, is not as dynamic a scorer as Allen Iverson was. So you do still need people around him that can shoot and that can probably at least one person that can create their own shot. And so that's where I think the Atlanta Hawks went wrong. Some of the guys that they moved away from Trae Young, I thought was a bad decision. You need young, athletic guys, like I said, who can defend around him, and then you need at least one person who can create their own shot. Because coming down a stretch, it's hard. And the same thing with Philly when they had Allen Iverson. It's hard for somebody 6 foot and under to get their shot off, when you have longer and more athletic guys on, defending you. So with Trae Young, I think if he goes to play with, like I said, with somebody like Anthony Edwards, if he goes to play with Giannis, then you don't have to worry about Trae Young shooting that shot, that last shot. And then Trae Young, in my opinion, he has gotten better. I thought he was always good at involving his teammates in the offense, right? So I think if he plays beside Anthony Edwards, he's not going to be the high volume shooter that he is in Atlanta. He's going to share the ball more with either Anthony Edwards or Giannis. So I think Trae Young will really help those two teams out. Well, let me get back to some more of what they're saying on the Running Back podcast so I can react.
I would be happy for Trae to be happy wherever he is, whether that's in Atlanta or whether that's somewhere else, to get a fresh start and get a new opportunity for him to be the great player that he is, and start seeing the results of that. Sometimes things just don't work out, and I don't want to speak for him, and I don't want to speak for the Atlanta Hawks. I know it's a sensitive subject, especially coming from me when we start talking about Atlanta Hawks basketball. But ultimately, I just want to see him happy, and I want to see the Atlanta Hawks be successful at the same time. So if those two things can happen collectively, that would be ideal. But at this point, it's looking like Trae is going to have to find somewhere else to be happy. And Atlanta is probably going to have to move on and create a new identity. But that's not for me to decide. But based on what's going on and me knowing how this business works, that's probably looking like that's going to be the next step.
I mean, look, Mark.
All right, so yeah, when he talk about Atlanta building a new identity, I think a lot of teams are going to follow the blueprint of what's going on with OKC. You got some athletic, you got a lot of athletic guys who can do multiple different things. You got Shea, he's their primary scorer, but you have some other guys on that team who can score and defend. Shea can score and defend. They have length and athleticism. They got the size with the guy Chet Holmgren. Then you look at the Spurs. The Spurs are built the same way. You got down in the paint, you got the big boy Wembanyama, but then you got around him, you got a lot of athletic guys who are interchangeable, guys who can score and defend. Look at the Houston Rockets, right? It's the same thing. You got Kevin Durant. I consider Kevin Durant to be a 7-footer. Then you got Şengün, who can score and defend. You got Amin Thomas, who also I think Amin Thomas about 6'6", 6'7". He can score and defend. So there is a pattern there. There's a blueprint there, and teams they're following that pattern and that blueprint. I think Atlanta, if they want to have some success, Atlanta's going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have to get bigger, more athletic, and they're going to have guys who can score and defend. And it won't hurt to have like a pass first point guard surrounded with all that athleticism and that low post dominance that like all those teams have. Şengün, like I said, low post very strong. Holmgren in the low post, I think, although he's kind of frail, but I think he's very effective in the low post, especially on the defensive end, because he alters shots and stuff like that, being a 7-footer. Wembanyama around the rim and stuff like that. Wembanyama is good at both ends of the court. So Atlanta is going to have to follow the blueprint of those teams, like the best teams in the West. They're going to have to try to get bigger, more athletic, and have guys that are more so like two-way players, can score and defend. So I think, though, for Trae, like I said, I think Trae should probably, the ideal situation for Trae would probably be to go to Milwaukee or either the Timberwolves, with Anthony Edwards, right? If I had to really nail it, if I'm Trae, I think Milwaukee probably would be a better, because Giannis he's dominant at both ends of the court, offense and defense, right? And so if you got Trae there and he just playing that pure point guard role, man, and he's feeding everybody and keeping everybody happy and take advantage of scoring opportunities when they present themselves and not be a shoot first. I think Trae in Milwaukee, I think that's a better look. I think that's the best situation for Trae. So, but that's my take on it, man. Y'all make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.